Okay, so we are starting the week with an interesting question, which is regarding casuals and elitists, or at the very least, what people think elitists are or hardcore players are. Apparently, the more I read and the more I watch, an hardcore player is anyone that does more content than the player who is complaining. But the question is the following. Blizzard has just added or plans to add Valor points for Mythic Plus. So non-Mythic Plus players started asking, what about us? Where is the progression system for non-Mythic Plus players? Why are Valor points relegated to Mythic Plus? Even if they can drop from callings, you still need to get the loot from Mythic Plus. To be able to upgrade it, you still need to clear all of the keys at +5 or +10 or +15 to have them eligible for the item level upgrades. So essentially they are Mythic Plus locked. And in the last few days, a heavy amount of complaints and discussion has been popping up regarding this, I guess, this very same issue. The fact that this is a Mythic Plus only system. So from my side, my own personal opinion, and being my opinion is de facto the correct one, the hardest content is going to award you the highest gear. It's very simple. This is one of the reasons why the majority of players, and every player with at least triple-digit IQ, considered Titan Forging horrible, because it meant you were able to be awarded power for your character without actually doing the appropriate difficulty level of content. So it was essentially skewing things up. It was also spilling over community as a problem, because then you could start seeing, for example, players queuing up in Mythic Plus keys, even though they were only ever able to clear a +7, but they were queuing up for a +18. Why? Because they Titan Forged the shit out of their gear, so now they had enough item level to queue up for higher keys, even though they never actually proved, they never actually shown they were able to do that. So that system was removed, luckily, thankfully. And now, more or less, you can get item level only from the content you're doing. You're getting to the point where if you are 220, you have to be a Mythic Raider, or you have to be someone who does high enough PvP to get consistent enough pieces from your conquest points. And if you have 207 item level, then you're just doing normal Castle Natria, you're doing Mythic +7, that level of content. This has been true for many years. If you're a Mythic Raider, you're getting the best loot. If you're doing high level arena as well, that was always the status quo of World of Warcraft gearing. And the complaint, though, is this constant request of so-called self-proclaimed casuals. I'm not calling them casuals. They pretend to be called casuals from their posts, from their comments, that they want a meaningful progression system for casuals. They want a way to continue improving their character, because after all, this is an MMORPG. That's kind of the goal of this type of games. Their sort of presentation card states that casuals just want to be able to improve their characters. That improvement can be more incremental, so take more time to achieve that improvement, as opposed to a Mythic Raider or a very high ranked PvP player that can get the reward faster. But in the end, they still want to get that incremental power, and it has to be there, or otherwise you lose interest. When this was pointed out in all these complaints, in all these arguments, the people with, at least 3-digit IQ were pointing out that we live in a world of Warcraft where right now you are getting 200 item level from solo content. You have upgradeable Covenant system. The upgradeable Covenant system of gear is awarded through Anima, and Anima is essentially completely casual. It's completely open world. So that seems like a very fitting system for you if you don't want to do Mythic Plus. And then you have callings. Now that you scaled high enough in Renown level, you're also getting to 200 item level rewards from your callings, your daily cash from your basically emissary, right? And 200 item level, for those who don't know, because they have long since done a +7 or a +8 in Mythic Plus, that's the reward you're getting, a +7. So if you're doing a calling every day and you get a piece of 200 gear, that's like completing a +7. If you're getting a 191 item level piece from a world quest, 191 is the equivalent of Mythic +3. A little, actually, 1 item level more than a Mythic +3. So we already live in a world where solo players, casual players, the utmost level of casuals, not casuals who just do heroic raiding. That's the elevated version of a casual, not the casuals who just do Mythic +10. That's also an elevated version of a casual. I'm talking about the pure casuals, the battle pet masters, the heroic dungeon professionals, that type of casual. They are already getting to 200 item level. Completing a plus 15 in Mythic Plus gives you 210. They are already within 10 item levels of the highest possible gear from Mythic Plus. They are within 13 of heroic rating. So when the complaint is we want a progression path for our character improvement in terms of power, I'm not sure there is a window left to give you any more gear, because otherwise you would be starting to devalue the rewards of other content, the actual challenging content in the game. It has been pointed out that the game has never been more casual friendly. We can say that the difficulty at the high end is still there. As a matter of fact, undeniably, the game has never been harder since Legion, purely because of the addition of Mythic Plus. Before, your dungeons would become outdated 2 weeks into the expansion. You only had a minor niche in terms of challenge mode, and even then didn't really give you actual power, just transmog sets. So since then, we have had the Mythic Plus competitive side, we have had arenas since TBC, and we have had a increasingly complicated and complex and coordination requiring raid encounters, going harder and harder over time. So the game didn't really slack at the ceiling. It remained pretty sharp in terms of high-end content, but the floor, the entry level of the game has never been more casual, has never been more helpful towards players. One time it was Titan Forging and War Forging and Warfronts giving you free gear. Now you have the Covenant campaign, which is going to give you free gear. And my question to you, casuals watching this, is what could possibly be a solution for upgraded gear past that point? Because past 200 item level, there isn't really much else you can add for a casual that doesn't start infringing on the rewards of actual competitive content. You want to give, 207 item level rewards for casuals? That's the Natrius normal. A 207 is like a Mythic plus 12 in terms of item. There are people who have to run 5 or 6 or 7 Mythic plus keys before they even get to one item. You can't have that same item level be given out from world quests, from emissaries, from Torghast, or from the Mo, since I've seen this as a sort of a suggestion, a series of suggestions. It seems like almost this hive mind of self-victimizing people have created this sort of boogeyman as an excuse as to why they can't progress. They have started calling this a wall. The casual players are hitting a wall and they can't progress anymore. People try to point out that this is a 1-foot wall that you can walk over with zero effort. It's just that you don't want to actually put the effort in. In an MMO, if you want gear, you have to group up and do content together. The content has to be challenging and competitive to a degree. If you don't want to do that, you can't ask for a progression system, for a gearing system. Even if it wasn't an MMO, even if it was a single-player game, even single-player games used to have harder rewards for harder content. I just don't see this. So this entire discussion has really confused me. I've been raiding and trying to do the harder content in the game since vanilla, so maybe I'm biased and I can't see the benefits, the bonuses of this type of system being given to a casual, but if I try to think about what an MMORPG is, I cannot see a working way to make this happen. I've seen people's suggestions, give gear to Torghast, to the Twisting Corridors, to the Mo, give Valor points from World Quest. I've even seen people mentioning why can't you grind professions or normal dungeons or heroic dungeons and gain Valor at a smaller rate. I just can't see this working out, because in the end, it would still be a way for people to gain higher item level than the difficulty of the content. Blizzard went a long way from BFA to getting rid of a lot of the RNG and a lot of the item level disparity in the content you were doing, with Warforged removed, with Titan Forging removed, with Corruption being removed. Now item level is back to define a little bit more each character. In BFA, if you saw someone at a certain item level, you had no idea what type of content they were doing. They could be a Mythic Plus player, or they could be literally never having stepped foot in a raid and be covered in Titan Forge gear from Mythic Plus, even from World Quests. You had no idea. Now you do. You know that someone who is 210 is not Mythic raiding at this point, and someone who is 224 is Mythic raiding, or at the very least doing high-level arenas or rated battlegrounds. One argument I would like to debate with you, virtually, metaphorically, is the "it doesn't affect you" argument. One of the bigger talking points regarding this problem, this debate, is that one player who doesn't do Mythic Plus, doesn't even raid, zero PvP whatsoever, just, Battle Pet Master, profession hero and the likes, points out that why does a Mythic Plus player who is doing plus 19s and someone who is doing Mythic raiding care if a casual is being given a piece of 226 gear? You will never interact with that casual. He will never be competing with you in your Mythic Plus keys or in your raid. He's a casual. He's doing casual content, right? Generally, the answer is an annoyed, why does an older expansion raid farmer, profession gathering farmer, and pet battle player need a 226 piece of gear? The gear is being given out so that you can push the harder content. If you're stuck doing world quests, being an alcoholic, and doing the lowest possible level of content, you should not need a 226 piece of gear. To which the replies are, yes, but why do you care? How does this affect you? Is your experience of the game made less simply because other people have access to the same level of your gear? So this is where you have a little bit more variance in the opinions. This is where you can have a little less facts and a little bit more of an opinion, of an idea, personal idea of how this should work. Personally, how this should work for me, and my opinion is a fact, is that it's an MMO. The primary part of an MMO is to get your character to be a big dick strongest character compared to others. You look down on them if you have more gear. You look down on them if you have a higher arena rating, if you are doing arenas, if you have a higher progression in Mythic Plus, if you do Mythic Plus, same for raids. Giving people free loot just because it doesn't affect you is going to completely devalue and destroy this feeling. All of you, most of you, are too young to remember the good old days of vanilla, but I can guarantee you that the game lived by this type of feeling. The game lived by people inspecting Chads AFK on the Ironforge Bridge while they were dressed in full tier 2 during Blackwing Lair, or in full tier 3 during Naxxramas. It was plebs, scrubs, hobos, and casuals looking at a better version of themselves, a better version of their class, something they could aspire to, something that could push them to do more content, something that they knew that if that person had a particular item, it meant something. It is an essential part of an MMO game, of an online game, with gear, with rewards that improve your character. This notion that if you are A and you have no interaction with B, then whatever B does or whatever B is awarded is not going to affect you is faulty, is just very narrow-minded in an MMORPG game. Now, after this, you can be more or less strict with this idea. On my end, for example, I would be extremely strict. I don't agree, for example, with people allowed to farm older pieces of gear from older raids, older titles, and older mounts. I shiver whenever I see a paladin in full tier 2 from vanilla in the Light of Dawn title from Wrath of the Lich King mounting the Ashes of Valar from TBC. And the guy is 19 years old and started playing in Legion. So I would take it even to that extreme, because he did absolutely nothing to deserve any of that. It is going to directly devalue people who actually earned those titles and those items during those times. Now that is a more boomer and old school and conservative type of view, which you can have a little bit more flexible, a little bit more lax. However, going back to the current version of the expansion and talking about item level rewards, it is much more important. If you are struggling, if you're putting in effort to get a 226 item level piece of gear because you finally killed Sludgefist Mythic and you finally got your belt, why should a casual player get a belt because he did 30 world quests and he got enough good boy points to get a 226 belt? It is directly affecting you because it is devaluing your efforts of raiding in this case. It could have been Mythic Plus or it could have been PvP. It's the same thing. So, for as biased as I am, fully on the side of elitists, I still don't think, even if I'm trying to be as biased as possible, I'm trying to play devil's advocate, I'm trying to put myself in a casual pair of shoes and trying to get it my way as a casual, I can't see a reasonable solution for this. If casuals already can get 200 item level and good, hard, challenging content is already at 210, which is Mythic plus 15, there is no wiggle room. There is no extra you can give to casuals, since you can already get 200. Maybe you can make it faster, make it easier to obtain, but higher than that and it becomes a little bit too problematic. I don't like to use this word, problematic. It's been used by way too many subhumans recently, but it is problematic, because if Blizzard came out with an announcement saying, hey, sorry, we modified Mythic Plus and loot distribution, we buffed raid distribution for loot, we forgot about you, dear casuals, now you get this. And they give you something like completing a set number of Torghast wings or Twisting Corridor wings can give you tokens or Valor to get gear. Doing X number of wall quests can get you gear. Turn-in. Material turn-in farmed from professions can give you turn-ins for tokens, for currency, Valor points, or a similar type of currency for gear, for casuals. If you can already get 200 item level gear, 191 from wall quests, 200 from the emissaries, how high are you going to go with this? That is my issue. I simply don't think that, for as much as the point has been made, we wish for casuals to have a progression path for their gearing system. I simply don't think it can go higher than it already is. If it went any higher, it would literally start melting and merging together with the competitive side of the game. So this is my point of view. My point of view is casuals are complaining because there's a new thing and it's not for them, but it's for Mythic Plus players. We could also make an entire video about how much variance there is in the word elitist, because I have read and heard and seen people be called elitists or people be called hardcore when their highest Mythic Plus key is an 11, or they are 2 out of 10 Mythic, or they are just doing heroic raid, and they are still called hardcore, and they are still called elitists or the 1%. So the wiggle room is enormous in this type of argument, and as I mentioned, it kind of seems like whoever is doing any type of content that these people, these casuals, are not doing, then they are considered hardcore. They are considered 1%. They are considered the toxic part of the community that is about the go, go, go mentality and loot and excluding other players and all these type of accusations that are being made, usually to make their side look like victims, poor, abused victims, and the other side as some internet bullies wanting to take away their fun. As you might have seen, as you might have noticed, I don't agree with this. I don't agree with this idea. I think the catch-up mechanisms as well as the open world rewards are already plentiful with the Covenant system, the storyline system awarding you with gear. It is already merging pretty well with Mythic Plus and raids. The item level from open world content is already plenty high enough to give you the bridge, to give you the jump start you need to get into challenging content. The issue here is that these people complaining don't want to get into challenging content. They want to keep up their improvement of gear without touching challenging content. Before, and for way too long now, they have been able to do this. They have been able to get away with this thanks to Titan Forging, thanks to Warforging, and thanks to corruptions. Now it doesn't work anymore. They are being left behind. What they feel is being left behind. I feel like they are being left exactly where they should be, and they don't like it. So tell me what you guys think. Please don't embarrass yourself. Think before writing logically, please. So tomorrow we're gonna go back to something more tangible, something more concrete, rather than this philosophical talk about casuals and elitists. See you guys tomorrow then, and in the meantime, a round of applause to the death of Titan Forge.